Authorities have tested sewage to see what drugs Australians are taking. And it's not good news. Once again, the results show that stimulant use is continuing to rise with record use in both city and regional areas. Australia now ranks third in meth and cocaine use among 30 countries that have comparable data. Ben, are we taking the right approach when it comes to drugs? We always get this war on drugs, war on drugs. But what we're seeing from these results are the fact that this is suburbia. People in suburbs are taking drugs. And is a tough stance the right approach?
Yeah, I think that we probably, I don't know if a tough stance and just beating our chests is the right thing to do. I think that you'll find that a lot of these drugs are linked back to a lot of mental health issues. I think it has a lot to do with men feeling like it's a glamorized thing to use drugs and it's a recreational way of them enjoying life. And I think that comes from, years of glamorizing cocaine and also mental health issues, being that men sometimes feel a little bit inadequate living up to these male bravado types and, sporting heroes and all the rest of it. So I think, if we really want to start talking about the real issues of where drug dependency comes from, I'm not saying it's completely responsible, but I definitely think we need to start looking at men's mental health issues.
And we have to accept in this nation, like alcohol, people take drugs, and we owe it to our society to make it safe. Don't we have to try a different approach?
Yeah, we really do, because you're exactly right. The approach that we've got now does not work. The biggest thing here is it does just seem like everyone can beat their chests and say, well, look, meth is on the rise and ice and, heroin and all this kind of thing. That's great, right? So that's good. We've got that data. Why aren't we using the data to help people? That's the biggest thing. So, we'll see these announcements and then it will...
Conservative politicians refuse to say we have ways of helping. Look at when Sydney and Melbourne did injecting rooms and the backlash. It was the front page of the Daily Telegraph every day. It's an easy conservative issue.
It is costing lives. It's costing livelihoods. It's costing lives. It's damaging families. All of this, so a conservative government, or any kind of government, actually, forget that. It's not conservative. It's any kind of government that doesn't have the balls to stand up and go, you know what, Sydney has a high rate of cocaine use. Maybe, just maybe, we should invest money into rehab facilities, into ways of actually helping people. For example, what the federal government does, with the ICE hotline and all that kind of thing, it's all rubbish. It's smoke and mirrors. It doesn't actually do anything. That's been well reported, but they're able to get up and say to Ma and Pa in the suburbs saying, well, look what we're doing. The support doesn't go any much further than the phone call. Right. That's similar to other hotlines that the government has. Queensland's got one. All state and territories have these numbers, but from all reports, they don't actually go forward. There's no anchor. There's no thread. There's no follow through. But you know what looks good? It looks good on a commercial. Authorised by the federal government, Canberra. It looks really good. So this is the biggest thing. Obviously, all media, as we are, will grab onto this story and say, "Oh, look, this use is up and this use is up." That's great. What are we doing with the information? We're just going to see more police commissioners and people like that just come up and go, "Well, we've got to get tough again." Well, okay, that's not working. That tough approach.
So look, I think it's about sort of talking about the origins of what drug use is like in Australia. It's all very well and good to say, what's the government? Oh, the government's not helping us. The government's not helping us. But let's look inside ourselves and think about what we can do. And the stories
how can we? Wait. How can we possibly do that without government funding or without funding from any kind of body? How can we? So you're going to say to an addict, "Hey, look inside yourself and work out why you do it." And just say no. That's basically the just say no argument.
It costs me nothing to be able to share. It costs me nothing to be able to share the story. And I tell you, opening up and being honest about drugs and alcohol and the reasons as to why people take drugs and alcohol and sharing that story, I think is powerful. And I don't think a lot of people are ready to admit about their drug and alcohol use and the reasons for it. And if we did open up and were honest about that, I think that would save a lot of lives. We're so proud and we put on this image and we're trying to say to people...
But you can't be honest about it, Ben, because it's illegal. It's illegal to take drugs.
And there's stigma.
The fact is that we have this stigma that is perpetuated by our governments, and our police forces that tell you it's bad. We've got premiers saying just say no. And you've just said it there. And I think you're so valid that it's more than just making a choice to take drugs. It does come from self-esteem. It does come from wanting a high or a happiness. And so what you're saying is absolutely right. But what Robbo's saying, I don't think you two are too far from each other. Robbo's just saying there needs more government money and injection, and we need to change the narrative around drug use and look at it from the point of view of what you're saying, but also give the resources to help people.
Like, I think that Robbo's making some valid points there, but without also being honest about who we truly are and about, our own drug and alcohol use. We're not really using our platforms wisely. And I think it's really powerful for me to turn that on myself, talk about drugs and alcohol that I've used in my life, talk about the reasons why, and talk about how I managed to get out of it. I think that is using my platform more powerfully to say that there was certainly times in my life where I suffered depression. And during those times of depression, I was relying on drugs and alcohol to keep myself alive. I was a functioning drug and alcohol user at a certain point in my life after my dad's suicide. And that was because I wasn't coping. And there wasn't anyone out there for me to turn to. Who am I going to turn around and say, hang on a sec, how did I find myself in this situation? But what
That's what I'm talking about. You need funding so that you do have people to turn to. That's what I'm saying. You need the government needs to do more. If they're going to commission these reports that show all of these drugs are being used in the community, then that's what you're saying is you need someone to turn to and to talk to and to help you. And we do these reports, but then we don't follow them up.
I want to break down my point and the reason why I want to talk about it, and the reason why I can see that you pushing me to understanding that both these points are valid, and that is that I never want to be the person who looks above and says, you are the people that need to help me to get there. I want to be the person that needs the help from other people, but is ready to ask for it and to also be honest about who I am. Yep. It's not just about the government offering funding. It's about the individual, and it's about the help that they are willing to accept and to acknowledge and to be truthful about. That is like the confluence. There's a confluence of things that need to occur for an individual to overcome their drug and alcohol use. And I'm not. But
once they do that, where are they supposed to go? Once they do that, where are they supposed to go? Because there are not enough facilities. So
I can tell you that using this platform right now to talk about drug and alcohol use, me saying that and having people watch me on Big Brother or having people watch me on Ticket Jumpstart or seeing me on this show and seeing that I am this person that I am today, and to admit that I've been through this and that I'm actually, I would never have described myself as an alcoholic or a drug addict. I would never have done that. But I want to talk about the casual use of it. And I want to talk about the reasons why I was doing it. And I want to say to people that to overcome that, I had to admit it in myself before that would even be possible to even reach out to government support. It's a double-handed approach that we're going to need to utilize to be able to help people get out of it. I had friends come around to my house. They would wake me up in the morning and they would take me to the gym before I went to work. They would take me to the gym after I went to work. I managed to I stopped drinking. I stopped partying. I stopped going out at all because I was so scared of this downward spiral that I was in. And I want to say to people out there that are struggling with drug and alcohol use that you're not alone. There's plenty of people out there, and it's not something that's going to govern your life. And if you could be honest about your struggle, then you will be able to reach out to government assistance. I don't necessarily think this is just one of those things where it's like, oh, the government's turning a blind eye. I'm not ready to say that.
But there is, but you're saying though, you're saying that when you realize it and you understand you've got a problem and you acknowledge that, then reach out to the government. What I'm saying, and I agree with you, what I'm saying though, there's nothing to reach out to. That's my problem. There's no government, state or territory or federal are not providing the right amount of help.
It's not the only way. Look, I'm telling you, what government assistance did I have to be able to take a hold of a really big problem that I had in my life? Like, what government assistance did I had? It was about looking for some strength and some determination and relying on friends and family. And it came from a place of acknowledgement.
As a government who looks after its people, we need more resources in this area for those who are reaching out. You had friends, you had family, and that is fantastic. Not everybody does.
And by sharing this information, I want to break down a stereotype that exists within the media. When people think of someone who's a drug and alcohol user, they think of a druggie. They've got this picture that's painted. That they don't realize is that their boss could be going through this. Their neighbor could be going through this. There is a stereotype that needs to be broken down.
Just want to say, if anyone's watching and have issues, you can call Lifeline on 13 11 14. There's also Beyond Blue and Kids Helpline as well. So make sure you reach out if you're having any of the kind of issues that we're talking about today.
It's the Ben, Rob,